April 1945. Jersey, Channel Islands. A young German soldier stands blindfolded before a firing squad. The rifles are raised. The order has already been given. In less than a minute, he will be dead. His crime is not sabotage, not murder, not espionage. His crime is love. His name is Nikolaus Schmitz. 300 miles away, on the same day, Alice Thaureux sits alone in a prison cell. She is 24 years old. She has been sentenced to death for the same crime, loving the wrong person at the wrong time. But Alice will not die. She survives because of a letter. 11 carefully chosen paragraphs, written by a man who barely knew her. A letter so precise, so desperate, and so human that it forced Nazi authorities to pause, and then to relent. This is the story of a love that violated every rule of war. A relationship that should never have existed. And the impossible choice between loyalty to a nation and loyalty to the heart. Because in occupied Jersey, resistance did not always look like sabotage or secret radios. Sometimes, the most dangerous act of all was simply falling in love. Jersey fell to German forces on June 30, 1940. There was no battle. No resistance. The British government had already evacuated. The civilian population was left behind. For the first time since the Norman conquest, British soil was occupied by a foreign army. Jersey became an island frozen in contradiction, British by identity, German by control. Close enough to France to see the coast on clear days. Close enough to England to feel abandoned by it. The occupation was unlike anywhere else in Europe. The island was too small for secrecy, too isolated for resistance. Everyone knew everyone. Every unfamiliar face stood out. The Germans fortified Jersey heavily, turning it into a concrete stronghold of bunkers, artillery, and minefields. By 1944, no place along the Atlantic Wall was more fortified per square mile. 12,000 German soldiers lived among 45,000 civilians. Resistance was impossible. Contact was inevitable. And where there is contact, there is humanity, and sometimes love. The German military had rules for this. German soldiers were forbidden from forming intimate relationships with civilians in occupied territory, especially British women. Such relationships were seen not as romance, but as weakness, proof of divided loyalty. For soldiers, the consequences ranged from punishment to execution, depending on circumstances. If a relationship suggested desertion or emotional allegiance away from the army, it was treated as treason. For civilians, the danger was just as real. Romantic involvement with an occupying soldier could be labeled collaboration. In extreme cases, it was treated as a political crime. Most women who crossed this line would later face humiliation after liberation. Shaved heads, public shaming, lives permanently marked. But only one woman on Jersey was sentenced to death by the Nazi regime. Her name was Alice Thaureux. No one knows the exact moment Alice met Nikolaus. The records are incomplete. Witnesses are gone. What remains are fragments, Court documents, letters, official reports stripped of emotion. Alice was a young islander who had lived on Jersey her entire life. Nikolaus was a Wehrmacht soldier, stationed far from home, assigned to a quiet island where the war felt distant but unrelenting. He was not a member of the SS. He was an ordinary soldier in an ordinary unit, trapped in an extraordinary war. Boredom, isolation, and fear defined life for both of them. Somewhere between routine and despair, they noticed each other. They knew the rules. They knew the risk. And still, they chose each other. Their relationship was not dramatic or defiant. It was private, human, a small refuge in a world that had become cruel and unpredictable. But Jersey was too small for secrets. Someone noticed, someone spoke, and once the authorities were informed, mercy vanished. In 1944, Alice and Nikolaus were arrested. Nikolaus was charged with desertion, an accusation that guaranteed death under German military law. Alice was charged with aiding desertion and undermining the occupation. Her sentence was equally final: death. They were separated immediately. Nikolaus was placed under military guard. Alice was taken to civilian detention. Both knew what that meant, unless someone intervened. That someone was Sir Alexander Moncrief Cuttenchy, the bailiff of Jersey. Cuttenchy was not a revolutionary. He was a careful administrator who had spent 4 years balancing cooperation with protection of the island's people. He barely knew Alice Thaureux, but he understood what her execution would mean, not just morally, but symbolically. So he wrote a letter directly to the German command. He did not deny the facts. He did not argue innocence. Instead, he argued motive. Alice, he wrote, was not a political actor, not a spy, not a saboteur. She was passionately in love. He framed her actions as human weakness, not ideological defiance. Love, not treason. Emotion, not conspiracy. It was a calculated appeal, and a desperate one. Executing a young civilian woman for a love affair would expose the occupation as brutal, beyond defense. Even the Nazis still cared, at least outwardly, about appearing lawful. Cuttenchy gave them a way out, and against all expectations, Alice's sentence was reduced from death to 10 years imprisonment. Her life was spared. Nikolaus's was not. In April 1945, with Germany collapsing and the war days from ending, Nikolaus Schmitz was executed by firing squad. Military law allowed no exception. He died not knowing if Alice had been saved. Jersey was liberated on May 9, 1945. The island celebrated. Flags returned. Crowds gathered. But beneath the joy was reckoning. Women who had loved German soldiers were punished publicly. Shamed. Condemned. Alice was released from prison. Her sentence, imposed by an occupying force, held no authority anymore. But freedom did not mean peace. History loses her after that. We do not know where she went. We do not know how she lived. We do not know if she loved again. What we do know is this: she lived because one man believed love deserved mercy. Nikolaus died because war does not forgive humanity. Their story leaves no easy answers. It only asks the question history avoids. When everything collapses, laws, borders, nations, what do we owe to the human heart? Alice Thaureux paid the price for love. Nikolaus Schmitz paid with his life. And between them stands a single letter, proof that, even in the darkest systems, humanity can still force its way through.